Coming up on the Men at the Movies podcast, Juan Velazquez and I talk about My Cousin Vinny. Vinny is a man who hides behind the armor of his leather jacket. He wants to get things done his way and on his terms. But eventually, as what happens to all of us and we all discover, he will reach a point where it just won't work anymore. Thankfully, for Vinny and for us, being in a no-win situation is a recipe for transformation. The clock's ticking, so join us as we discover God's truth in this movie.
The movies and stories we love are gateways to see ourselves and God in new ways.
Every great story borrows its power from a larger story, the story that's written on our hearts and woven into the fabric of our very being. Hello and welcome to the Men at the Movies podcast. My name is Paul McDonald, and joining me from just down the road is Juan Velazquez. Hey Juan, how you doing today, man?
What's up, Paul? Thank you for having me again as we, make this continuous trend, I think.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully viewers will get used to my voice.
Yeah, and Juan came on as part of the Band of Brothers series. Mm-hmm. We did episode 3 talking about Blythe and Spirit of Fear and all this stuff. But we are here. We're going to talk about My Cousin Vinny, which was, man, it came out in 92, and I watched it last night, and it was an amazingly written movie. Marissa Tomei actually won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, which
she did,
especially back in the 90s, didn't get, I don't think, laid out to comedies as very often. But right. She was, I mean, the Joe Pesci, Marissa Tomei were just phenomenal in this movie. That was the best part of the movie, right?
Yeah, they really fed off of each other, and I'm sure we're going to talk about a scene, the biological scene everyone knew, and she really was nominated because of that particular scene. That was the scene that was sent to the Academy to be previewed. And absolutely, I love her character in this because she's so quiet, sincere, I'm going to play the happy, pleasant wife. Yet she isn't. Right? Because she's not married yet, hence the scene where she just blows up on him. And, but, one of the things that we were talking about is the core of the film, right, itself speaks to me because of identity. Everyone's having an identity crisis, especially Vinny and I identify with his character. But Mona Lisa, come on. Mona Lisa, think about going your whole life being, she is also on a journey of self-discovery, right? Mm-hmm. So I feel like if I watched each character through their lens over and over again, as I do, because I've watched this movie so many times, I see something of me in each one. I just love the way they decided to put two movies together, two different stories. Here's a story about a couple, a husband or soon to be, and a fiance, my fiance, as he says, discovering their own path as they decide, what's right for their future. And she's making goals based on his accomplishments, which puts more pressure on him, which I felt in my life many, many times, whether in this relationship now or in the past, I felt that I had to accomplish certain goals so that our marriage or our relationship could move further down the road. And I'm like, I didn't script that, you did. And it's kind of like what he tells her, and he stomps on the floor, your biological clock. He, and I love how the director allowed that, because that was all improv. And they played off of each other, which was perfect. I sincerely think it was probably the best film made that year. I know arguably some people will, probably, I don't know, they're probably going to bash me for that. but if you really sit down and understand Vinny's journey and understand that, he's just a normal guy trying to impress his love, his friends, and kind of cater to his environment as well, that cultivated him as an individual, and he doesn't want to let any of those sources down.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I mean, I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that's me, all day, every day.
Yeah.
Without the hair.
So if you haven't seen the movie in 30-ish years, the way it starts is these two guys, William and Stanley, played by one guy Ralph Macchio, and another guy you don't know. Where's his stupid name?
Is that
Mitchell Whitfield. They're driving through Alabama. They stop at a gas station. They leave. They accidentally steal a can of tuna. Moments later, somebody driving a similar car robs the gas station and kills the attendant, kills the guy who works in the convenience store. So it's a big case of mistaken identity. But they have no money. They're college kids driving through. One his parents are in Chile and in the mountains somewhere. The other guy's up in Newark in Brooklyn. Was it Newark or Brooklyn?
It was, Brooklyn, because Newark is Karate Kid.
Yeah. All right. There you go.
I know, I get it all mixed up.
So in Ralph Macchio's character, William is from Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Now my dyslexic brain won't keep them apart. And he calls his mom, and they're like, my cousin Vinny, he's a lawyer. Sweet. Because they don't have money to pay for a lawyer because it'll cost $50,000, $100,000, which even today is still a chunk of change. And so Vinny comes down, and his character, and he brings, Joe Pesci, he brings Marissa Tomei, his fiance, Mona Lisa Vito. And so they come down and they show up and they're dressed to New York City standards, shall we say, which is not, doesn't really fit in backwoods Alabama.
Right.
And so this is, to me, it's a brilliantly written, really interesting shots. I thought some of the ways that the cameras were used was interesting, but the writing was phenomenal and the acting was great. But what you see is when they show up, it had taken Vinny six times to try to pass. It had taken him 6 times to try to pass the bar. Yeah. He had passed the bar. He had been practicing law for about 6 weeks, and he's a personal injury lawyer. So he had always been out of court. This was his first trial, his first actual courtroom case. But it's funny because when he's first sitting down with the boys after that scene where one guy where Stanley thinks he's about to get raped, and Vinny's like, "You should be grateful." Which is, again, just the misunderstanding here on multiple times is just really, really cleverly done. But he's sitting down and they're like, "Well, where did you graduate from?" The Brooklyn Academy of Law. Yeah. Well, it took you 6 times. And he's showing no shame, right? Because it's all about persona. It's all about being bigger than life. And in a lot of ways here, it's about fitting in a place where you don't fit in. And when we look at these movies, the stories we love are stories of transformation and revelation. And we see Vinny transform throughout this movie. And so Juan, when you look at when he shows up as wearing these all in black, leather jacket, studded cowboy boots, criticizing Mona Lisa that she doesn't fit in. You stick out like a sore thumb. He's like, oh, like you fit in. But what is it? How do we see Vinny transform throughout the arc of the movie? And what we'll do is we'll talk about how he transforms, and then we'll start talking about how different moments along the way helped to transform him.
Yeah. Let's touch on that. Excuse me. Let's touch on that leather jacket. So for anybody who does get to view it, they'll see me in a suit jacket, and I text you and I said I'm ready for court. Right?
You didn't wear a tie though.
And I did not wear a tie because surprisingly I don't own one. There's still a little bit of a poser in there, I guess, or a nonconformist, I guess, whichever way you want to see it. But I used to have. So I met my wife at a house party in Newark. Okay, and man, I had leather jackets. I had boots. I was dressed up in swag. And, I had this attitude and, the swagger like Vinny does throughout the movie. This sense of confidence, because one, Joe Pesci short. I'm short. I'm 5'4", 5'6" with my boots, as Ricky Fur says. But what's interesting is I went to meet her parents for the first time. And I got all dolled up. I shaved. At least I thought I looked decent, but I had a goatee. I looked like a really mean guy that just got released from prison. My eyebrows were really thin. And and here I am putting on a leather jacket, and it must have been maybe the fall. It wasn't even chilly. It was just decent. It was just nice. And I walk into her parents' house, who are super conservative, super Christian, long hair, long skirt. They're beautiful people, but when they first met me, that was their first impression. Rebel without a cause, Until this day, everyone still doesn't let me live down. It's just one of those moments in my life where I see Vinny walk in when he does in town, and that's me. That's me walking into Edison, New Jersey from Newark, which seemed far then. It was such a different, it was like, forget crossing the tracks. It was like crossing like a whole other time zone. It was just like Pleasantville. Great movie, by the way. But I saw Vinny and I see him, and his demeanor immediately puts on a pose, because he's like, I'm in unfamiliar territory. So I have to put up the shield of armor and, be on guard. And that was his leather jacket. His leather jacket was his armor. And in a lot of ways, I did that with my own life. I was far from God, way, way far from God. And I had no clue what Christianity really was until I met her parents. I had gone to Catholic school, sure, but who hasn't? Or maybe I have that in my mind, thinking everybody has. Thank you, Blues Brothers. I'm on a mission from God. I can't help it, but that was one of the best episodes you've done, and I could rewatch that over and over again. Yeah. But I see him as an imposter in his own world, and that's how I've always viewed myself, as an imposter, someone who didn't have a definitive identity because I was always trying to impress others. And meanwhile, that sounds disingenuous. Like people look at you like, yeah, he's a nice guy, but he's full of crap,
Yeah.
or, he sounds like he's all about BS, I don't know. I can't trust that guy, not even with my dog.
Right. Yeah, and that's what you see in the beginning, even when he's in the judge's chambers and he's got his feet kicked up and he's asking him about his record, and he's not saying 6 weeks, he's saying 16 years he's practiced. And as if when you've lived a life of bullshittery, you learn to just double down.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? It's 16 years, done all the stuff. Oh, this guy? Yeah, that was me. Oh, this guy? Yeah, that was me. And just sort of as they say, your mouth writing checks your body can't keep.
Yes. I and there was a time in my life when I worked in sports and entertainment where that played into my profession. I went to places, and maybe I shouldn't say where, but I went to certain jobs and I was like, yeah, I've been doing this for like 8 years. Meanwhile, there's a guy from the union spitting out, his tobacco chew, looking at me like, yeah, that guy's full of shit. I'm going to eat him alive later on. Let's see what he's got going on. And, and it was easier back then because you were living in an era where the internet was inaccessible. I don't even think AOL was around. So, it was just like, all right, you can create whatever identity you wanted, right? And I kept on doing that at every job site so that I can build cloud. And everywhere I went, I had to try to, if I went somewhere else, I'm like, wait, what bullshit did I tell them over there? Oh, yeah, that's right. I did carpentry. Okay, yes, I can do that job. I'm sure I can. Yes, but I don't know how. Where do I find out? The only thing we had was maybe a book called Carpentry for Dummies. Remember that series? And I don't even think that came out then. So
yeah, that was still later on. Probably you were going to the library.
I was going to my cousin Vinny to find out. Hey, do you know how to do carpentry? What is that? What do you do? Carpets?
So that's something that we all resonate with. And that's one of the reasons that a movie like this, you sit and you enjoy it, and then you sort of get even emotional at the end, is because to me, it reminds me of an animated movie which packages these big points in what is supposed to be a kid's movie. Now, this is rated R. It's not a kid's movie, obviously. But that idea of here's this character who's so over the top that put in a situation that is just ridiculous. And yet, for some reason, we relate because we've all gone into the boardroom. We've all gone into the meeting. We've all gone into the job interview, desperate, putting, as you mentioned earlier, putting all this pressure of, well, I can't do this until I do this. And so I really need to do this because I want to do that later. My daughter is struggling. She moved home. She moved back home a couple months ago, and she's having a hard time because she doesn't technically want to be here. She doesn't want to be here when she's 30. I don't want her to be here when she's 30 because that'd be like 8 years from now. But she's also got this pressure of, well, maybe in 3 years I can be here and try to buy a house. And we're like, that's you're going too fast. If you put too much pressure on yourself, then that's going to lead to the bullshittery. And because you're just trying to, you're trying to press, and you're trying to make shit happen. And so we see this scene relatively early on. They're being in the backwoods in Alabama. There's steam whistles, there's pigs, there's railroad, there's trains coming through. I think it's awesome. Yeah, basically. I think it's funny that his best night's sleep is in the prison because he's got yelling and sirens and police. It's like, oh, that's what he's used to. But he's got this giant book of Alabama law procedures and he's trying to go through it and he's going so slow and it's 3:00 in the morning. And he's been in jail twice now for contempt because he didn't wear a suit because of something he said.
Right.
And Mona Lisa checks on him and says, like I said, it's 3:00 in the morning. Got to get up, court the next day. What we see is when the pressure it always gets to a point where we have to break, where we have to like let off some steam. We have to let somebody in because if we don't, we're going to die. It feels like. And it's interesting hearing Mona Lisa's response to that. And which is, I think, frequently the response that we get and also the response we're afraid to get.
You done reading?
Yeah.
You want to go to bed?
I don't know. I don't feel good.
You shouldn't feel good. You haven't slept much in 3 days.
That's part of it. You know what it is? I'm really scared.
You should be.
How the fuck did I get into this shit? Oh, sure. No problem. I could win the case. I already got myself sent to jail twice. I could win this thing, though. I know I could. I mean, if I could keep my ass awake and out of jail long enough, bet you I could, huh?
You know what I think?
What?
Honestly? I think that once you're out there and you're doing your thing out there, I think you're gonna be really great. Really great. If you don't fuck up.
I even like the way the P pops at the end. But that question, right? How did I get into this?
Right. That's the question we all ask ourselves is how I've had that same process happen at a job. Like, how did I get into project management? I have no idea what I'm doing. Why am I managing 300 people? How? Why?
I don't even like it.
Right.
I don't even like people.
I don't even know what that means. Sure, I can do it. There was no Google. Let me look up what project management. No. You know what I should have sent you in my notes. When he is in that vulnerable state, right? He's, it's in the middle of the night. You're in your PJs. You're confused. You're worried. You're anxious. I know I get up sometimes that way and I have to just go pray. And Mona Lisa, Marissa's character, is basically the voice he needs to hear. It's like when we pray to God and we're saying, oh God, just I need to be delivered from this situation and I need to move on. I've had that moment so many times, and then you just kind of allow yourself to understand maybe this is what God wants me to be doing. And she does it to the point, and then God being God with a sense of humor, then he says, just don't fuck it up. Tell me, hey, you're going to be okay. You're going to do this. You're going to be fine. We're going to get through this together. Just don't fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
Then I know it's genuine. If you have someone saying, attaboy, you're going to be fine. Give you a hug. I'll pray over you. Peace. Deuces. No.
Right.
I don't subscribe to that.
Well, especially because we are so used to the bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And so hearing if all that he got was once you're in there and you're talking, you're going to be great. That falls flat, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think, oh yeah, I read this thing you did. That was awesome. Or, hey, I'm really worried about this. You're going to be great. You're going to be awesome. You're going to step into your gifting. And there is truth in that.
There is.
But there's also the truth of, like you were saying, I think God actually says this. Yeah, here's what I've given you. I've put this into you. I've put these gifting.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we going to do about it?
Right.
The whole idea, he is a high level, I don't know what you call it, but he sees through the bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. When Bill is talking about how, his cousin Vinny saw this magician and he sees through the trick every time.
Yes.
Like that is a gift and it comes easy to Vinny. But just because it comes easy doesn't mean we have to. Just because it comes easy doesn't mean we don't have to work.
Mm-hmm.
Because if he just shows up without putting in the work, he's going to fuck it all up. But his problem is that one day he comes back and Mona Lisa's read like half the book of the Alabama procedure, right? And he's in there, hey, he gave me the files. I'm the man. She's like, you idiot. He had to give you the files.
Right.
But he doesn't take advantage of her gifting because, as we'll find out, he's a guy who wants to get it done. He wants to win on his own, by himself. He doesn't want to rely on anybody else for help. And I don't know, does that resonate? Does that echo with you at all there? The wanting to get it all done by yourself without needing help and
of course
all that.
I'm a perfectionist, and not only that, but
yeah, you got the power washers back today because they didn't do a good enough job the first time.
Right. I'm like, dude, I see a spot here, one there. He's like, that's it, and I'm like, look, I just want it gone,
I paid you.
Right. I could have done this myself, but great guys.
I could have done a half-assed job for free.
And paid you for the other half. Oh, but when I first went up to the Carolina outposts, I had that mentality that, all right, I'm here, but I'm going to figure my shit out. And, I'm going to go ahead and work on it by myself. I don't need help or a band of brothers to help me. I'm good. Besides, you guys are just going to be getting in the way.
Mm.
So, I see Vinny thinking that she's just getting in the way. She is just this ditzy beauty that he is soon going to marry. And she, he's dismissive of her. And I know I've done that too with my wife. So I see that perfectionist and in a certain level. But, one of the things that I love about that scene as well. So this is another useless piece of knowledge that I know. I wish I was Millionaire was back because I probably get a lot of these questions right. So the U.S. Constitution is about 4,000 plus words, give or take. In Alabama, it's 300,000. It's the largest in the country. So those procedural rules are written into their constitution. So that's really, he was setting Vinny up to fail because the judge was like, yeah, this good old boy doesn't know anything about Jesus and he's going to come down here and stomp his feet and tell us how it is and procedural law, then let them read our law. And a lot of times when we walk into Christianity, we look at this Bible and we're like, those pages are really thin. How many pages are here? And then you realize there's like 4 pages in 1 page. You're like, this is going to take me a while. Let me just put it aside. That's what Vinny was saying. He was afraid to fail. And a lot of times we're afraid to fail God, but we're not willing to put in the work. And I had to do it. I had to put in the work and pick up my Bible and read it and understand my journey. Because for everyone inside the Bible, it's their own journey. My journey was a journey of identity and a journey of finding out how I can be that better version of me rather than molding into some bullshitter.
Right.
BS Juan. Yeah, well, actually, that actually sounds great.
And because what we see, what we've experienced, when you're like, wait, what did I tell this group? What did I tell this group? I remember having the feeling as like, I really like who I am when I'm at work, when I was working as a nurse in the emergency department. I didn't really feel that comfortable or like myself at church. I didn't really feel comfortable at home. It's like, but I like myself. How can I be the same person wherever I go? Because eventually, so like Jerry Maguire says, I have lost the ability to bullshit.
Yes.
I don't have it in me because the pressure gets too much. It becomes overwhelming and it affects everything we have. And it's just not worth the effort. And probably, as you mentioned earlier, the most well-known clip from this movie is sort of a moment where that happens, where the culmination of all this pressure happens. And it's going to happen. And our question, our choice, when those moments of bursting, of popping, of when the pressure can't be contained anymore, is how are we going to respond? Are we going to respond and quit? Or are we going to respond and become someone and something different? So I'm playing the biological clock clip here. Vinny and Mona Lisa are out on the porch, out in the cabin as he's trying to prep for the trial tomorrow. And we see that those times that we feel the most pressure, it actually ramps up in order to move us into growth and into transformation.
What's the matter with you?
I don't know.
You're acting like you're nervous or something.
Well, yeah, I am.
What are you nervous about? I'm the one that's under the gun here. Trial starts tomorrow.
You want to know what I'm nervous about? I'll tell you what I'm nervous about. I am in the dark here with all this legal crap. I have no idea what's going on. All I know is you're screwing up, and I can't help.
You lent me a little camera, didn't you?
Oh, Vinny, I'm watching you go down in flames, and you're bringing me with you, and I can't do anything about it.
And?
Well, I hate to bring it up because I know you got enough pressure on you already. But we agreed to get married as soon as you won your first case. Meanwhile, 10 years later, my niece, the daughter of my sister, is getting married. My biological clock is ticking like this, and the way this case is going, I ain't never getting married.
Lisa, I don't need this. I swear to God, I do not need this right now, okay? I got a judge that's just aching to throw me in jail. An idiot who wants to fight me for $200. Slaughtered pigs. Giant loud whistles. I ain't slept in 5 days. I got no money, a dress code problem, and a little murder case, which in the balance holds the lives of 2 innocent kids. Not to mention your biological clock, my career, your life, our marriage, and let me see, what else can we pile on? Is there any more shit we could pile on to the top of the outcome of this case? Is it possible?
Maybe it was a bad time to bring it up.
Maybe.
I love how he throws in. He's like Aiken, like he makes up words like we do up in the north. We especially. I love the fact that anybody who comes from the greater tri-state area, and if you're from New York, New Jersey, or Connecticut, there's a certain subsection of each one that we call the tri-state. It starts in Newark into Jersey City, through Hoboken into Manhattan, etc., the boroughs, and then into Connecticut as far as up as Groton. But we make up words, and a lot of times, I know that I've done that. If I've been in the heat of the moment, I'll make up some word. it helps me stop, but he's so flustered and irritated, and at his, just he feels more pressure than ever right now. It's far beyond he would have ever imagined he would have gotten, because now he's reminded of a previous arrangement, right? That he may have not signed a document for, but she, his beauty, did. And she's waiting. She's waiting for him to rescue her. And she's literally telling him, but being in love with him to the point to say, yes, maybe it was that time. That's what's so magical about this movie, that in between the lines, you can really see that there's so much more going on between these two characters and their love affair for each other and their affection. And not only that, but her role as respecting the man she loves and giving him all the things that he requires, the affirmations and all that stuff. So, as someone tries to call me, um, I've done that with my wife. I've blown up more times than I should. Oh my God, what a dick move. Every time it happens, I'm like, oh, I've gotten better, but not, not great. I've done the stomping on the floor. And so it has been a journey of, man, I'm being true to myself. I could say it, but that is scary. See, we're already, demonstrating what he was afraid of, the truth being exposed. And a lot of times that's what we're afraid of. And I think he's afraid of being exposed. He's under all this pressure and he's like, dude, calm down. We're going to get to you. I got this long list. I don't want to be exposed. It's bad enough you think that there's a Joey Callow somewhere in the midst that's going to vouch for me. So he has this cloud of doubt from everyone, hovering over him. I feel that all the time. I can't get rid of it. It's like a disease that's permanent, like this disease that they're like, yep, it's with you forever. It's terminal. It's going to be the end of you, because so long as you keep on thinking that there's this shadow of the doubt over how people perceive you, you can never be your true self. And that comes from allowing yourself to be open-hearted and have different views and perspectives of others, and things that I've been working on for sure. But man, I see this scene and it's funny, it's magical, it's electrifying. But for me, man, it brings back memories of moments when I've become enraged and beside myself and uncontrollable and unwilling to listen to anyone else's point of view, because that cloud of uncertainty and doubt has just full control over my mindset.
Because when we're under the mask, when we're in the mask, in your sort of our prep, you texted me, he said, it's like he constantly wears a mask, never showing his true self. And
Yeah.
because of that, nobody takes him seriously. You know, Stanley wants a different lawyer. Bill's concerned. He's not sure. The other lawyer there that he's going up against, he doesn't take him seriously because he knows, everybody knows that you're out of your depth.
Mm-hmm.
But in your effort to not, it just sort of digs in deeper. Because what is the core of what Lisa's telling him? I want to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure whose idea it was for him to win the first case before it happened, but I bet it was his because he didn't feel worthy. And think of that, like all those things of, well, when this happens, then we'll do this. When that actually keeps us from what we actually long for.
Good.
Hey, this is, oh, that's my stage name. I'm Joey Gallo. Do you say Gallo with a G? I'm Callow with a C. And all this stuff, bang, 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 bang. Like to the point where he pushes her away because all she wants to do is help. She is dying to help him throughout the movie. She wants to do more than just bail him out of jail. But his insistence on doing it in his own strength and his own power, keep landing him in jail, keep putting him in trouble. And he just, in his mind, he can't win. And that is the recipe for transformation.
Yeah.
When we find ourselves in a spot where we can't win, where we can't do it anymore, where we need somebody else, where we have to change or we're going to die, that's when he changes. Like it's interesting because after he runs her out of the restaurant there at the lunch towards the end of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
he knows he screwed up, and immediately what he says is, I'm sorry. That's the moment he becomes a new man. That's, if you want to use our religious terms, that's repentance.
Mm-hmm.
When you realize what you've been doing hasn't been working. And Juan, I'm gonna invite you to something. Because you called us. You called me and Matt a couple weeks ago. Because your way of life wasn't working.
Mm-hmm.
But you didn't try to figure it out on your own. You've been doing that for several years. And I'm not going to get into the details.
Right.
But you had called us and said, hey, something happened several years ago. It's still hurting me today.
Mm.
And you talked with Matt and I. And it's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because I asked you a question that I felt elementary, that felt simple. I just said, have you asked God into this area of healing? You're like, no, I don't want him in here.
Yeah.
And Matt, being Matt, showed up. The next time he saw you, he had a bat and a trash can.
Yes, he did.
To work some shit out, as it were. Because when we get to that point, what I've been doing isn't working anymore. You've lost the ability to bullshit. It was affecting your kids. It was affecting your wife. But when Matt showed up and you took some swings with the bat, what happened inside of you that you would label transformation?
I guess the best word. So I went up to the mountain. We all get a word. As trail guides, we look for a word to pray on. And I got to tell you, I went all the way up to the last day just praying, what's my word? Because sometimes, when you try to push something, you're not going to get anything. It's not authentic. It's not from
Right.
God. But I felt this force telling me, restore. The fact that I needed to restore my heart. It was in all these broken little pieces. And a lot of that heartbreak came from God. Like, why should I let you into a situation you started? And why should I allow you to be part of my life in this situation? It's okay if you hang out with me all those other times. We can go fishing if you want, but not with this one. The metaphor or the actual physical act of beating on that poor trash can that probably was made somewhere in China. That bat and the sound of that plastic exploding provided a release to not just it was, man, if I'm being, it was unexplainable, right? Was the exact words. Like I think afterwards we went to a tree. All right, so it started with
A
started
trash can that didn't last very
can.
long.
No, and then we found a dead stump, or I guess it was dead. But I'm sure, God and the tree allowed this to happen for a reason. So I appreciate the tree. For anybody who's worried about the tree is fine. All right. If you want to go visit the tree, it's in Camp Harris and YMCA Boomer. Anyway, the tree, I've never held a bat that tight before. It was a moment that I felt not only safe, but safe to be angry at God. And just finally have this outright fight that I knew I was going to lose. Finally, I just felt this energy inside me and I released the bat. I stopped. But I'm telling you these things because I rewatched the video that was recorded of me. But I do not remember doing this. All right.
Yeah.
The best way I can do is to explain it in my own perfect Vinny way. All right. There have been many times where I had been under the beverage and don't remember. Like, yeah, we were what? We went where? And we did that when? So I had to rewatch that. And I actually regurgitated according to some people. They were like, dude, you were like in another world. So I was restored. Whatever was in me is gone. That part of my life is back. And I'm looking forward to coming back on and maybe talking more about that journey. I'm still, if I'm being honest, I'm still afraid because I don't want pity from the world. None at all. I think if anything, this is for me with God, and that's what matters. And if anyone is interested in understanding what it is to have a release, then this is the best method. Because this I will say, and I know we're talking about a funny movie, and I know we're talking about some great things, but a lot of us men, especially those of us who have gone through some great trauma or dramatic event, we tend to check out with that blue pill. I'm like, yep, I'm done. And the blue pill might be a gun in the hand and you're gone. All right. That's the easy way out. That's the enemy. And I've been there. So having that bat and that release was new, uncomfortable. And I think it worked. If I'm being honest, it worked.
Yeah.
If it didn't work, we'll see you back at the mountain. But it's been a good journey, and I am appreciative that I had an opportunity to have that release and not walk alone. That I had men like you, men like Matt, men like Bill, not Bill and Stan, but Ricky, really men who can just nod their head. I love it when you just nod your head when you're with a group of people and they get to know you enough where if you start saying something, they just nod their head and you're like, all right, they get it. Good. Oof, that's good. That feels good. Because you didn't really need to say anything, but you're all in sync. And sometimes you just need that. And yeah, I know we went on a tangent there. We went far off the cliff here. We're probably on Judge Chamberlain's holler.
No, I think one of the things that you said was, and all of us experience, is all these pieces of my heart.
Yeah.
And that's what Jesus came to do. He came to bind up the brokenhearted. Whether it's in Isaiah 61 or Luke 4, that's what he says. And the word brokenhearted is as if a vase falls to the floor and shatters into a million pieces. That's what our hearts have been because of the trauma of the world, the effects of sin, of fallenness, of our enemy, all the things. And the intention is to drive us farther from God. And that point that we see where Vinny is feeling all the pressure, for him, it's all the pressure in the world, is probably making him feel like a 12 or 13-year-old boy. And something happened then that needs to get restored. Something happens then that needs to get clicked back into place, like a missing puzzle piece. And when it does, when we don't really see him change until he says, I'm sorry, as he's standing in the restaurant door, I'm sorry, as she's leaving, that's when he starts moving forward. But how are we going to approach those moments where the burden and the pressure feels like it's at the most we can handle? Are we going to keep fighting it in our own strength? Or are we going to go into this and say, I don't know what you're doing, God, but use it for my restoration? And sometimes it takes a basketball, or sometimes it takes a baseball bat and a trash can or a tree stump to process some of that.
Too.
Because, and so I want to play the clip from the end of the movie as they're driving off. We watch it. My wife's like, he didn't technically win the case. It was a dismissal. There was no one lost. It was dismissed. Charges were dismissed. So he technically didn't win the case. But we're going to skip over that.
I did too. I was gonna touch on that, but that's okay. She gets it.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're driving away. Everything's good. Happy ending. All this stuff. But Vinny is still, he's not as happy as you would expect him to be. And Lisa asks him why.
What the hell was that all about back there?
I had a friend send a fax to the judge confirming the very impressive legal stature of Jerry Hallow.
What friends you got in the clerk's office?
Your friend,
My friend?
Judge Malloy. So what's your problem?
My problem is I wanted to win my first case without any help from anybody.
Well, I guess that plan's moot.
Yeah.
You know, this could be a sign of things to come. You win all your cases, but with somebody else's help, right? You win case after case, and then afterwards, you have to go up to somebody and you have to say thank you. Oh my God, what a fucking nightmare!
I won my first case. You know what this means.
Yeah, you think I'm gonna marry you?
Well, you're not gonna marry me now?
No way. Can't win a case by yourself, you fucking useless.
What makes that so funny, and I mean, obviously, it's whatever, but this idea that she knows him so well that she can bust his balls for the things that she was actually sort of busting his balls for in the first place. What a nightmare. You're going to win, but you have to say thank you. And then she's like, why would I marry you? You can't win without its help. And because what he's realized is that she's been there for him all along. She's been wanting to help, wanting to be his partner, and he's been holding her out. And now that he's brought her in, they're experiencing a closeness and intimacy that they didn't have when they were driving down to Alabama. He's revealed who he really is. And when you're in that safe of a place, you can say those sorts of things where you can poke and needle and prod and hopefully talk about super, super fresh experiences that you just went through.
Bubbly personality that brings him alive. Right? Because he's still bummed out. He's like, oof, we just got out of Dodge. Good. He doesn't quite get it. He understands that it was a dismissal. He won, kind of, sort of. But, he needed that extra oomph from, yet again, a familiar voice that he trusts. Just like he trusted her in 3 a.m. to give him some advice. She's going to give him some shit and some advice at the same time. So it's great because it's a non-motivational speech, but it's motivating for Vinny and Vinny's world. And I've led a life that way where you really have to talk to me backwards in order for me to be motivated. Like, like that hard coach. Like, come on, you get up from your lazy butt, dribble that ball faster. Come on, cheeky butt, climb that, rope, gym, right? So, but you do it. At least I do it. I think that's why I like coaches when I work out, because I like being like, so come on, dude. You pay me for what? So that I can count? You can do that yourself with your iPhone. Let's go.
Well, I think it reveals that she sees him for all his difficulty and the challenges and accepts him anyway.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, how awful. She actually knows how hard it is for him to ask for help. And then she's like, yeah, you're a guy who needs help. You're useless. But in a way that is embracing in the tone and again, to feel completely seen and known, as you mentioned before we even started the prayer, you said it felt like a cold glass of water after mowing out in the summer heat.
Yes.
When you're used to holding people at bay, when you're used to being the bullshitter, when you finally let someone in who sees you, knows you, and wraps you up in love anyway, it feels like a glass of water to a thirsty man. And I think that's one of the reasons that we love this movie.
Yeah.
Along with this clip.
Is it possible the two youths?
To what? What was that word?
What word?
To what?
What?
Did you say utes?
Yeah, two youths.
What is a ute?
Oh, excuse me, Your Honor. Two
So, Juan,
youths.
thank you for letting me watch this movie. I probably hadn't seen it in 30 years, but it was really enjoyable, really delight, and
Thank you.
thanks for sharing the time and your heart with us here today.
I appreciate it. Great movie. Great everything. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Watch it with your family. If you got a way to, tone it down, maybe get the, TV version. Either way, you're gonna have a great time, especially if you have teenagers. Oh my God, they're gonna love it.
They're gonna love it. All right, so this has been Paul McDonald and Juan Velazquez talking about My Cousin Vinny. We hope you guys enjoyed it, and we hope you join us next time here on the Men at the Movies podcast.
Something inside has been awakened. I can no longer be who I was before. But if I am no longer who I was, who am I to be?